Africa is a continent brimming with potential. It possesses vast mineral wealth, fertile land, and a young, vibrant population. From the gold and diamonds of South Africa to the oil and gas reserves of Nigeria, Africa's natural resources are the envy of the world. Its diverse cultures and rich history further contribute to its unique allure. However, a stark reality casts a shadow over this potential: Africa's dependence on G7 nations. Despite its abundance, the continent remains economically tethered to its former colonial powers and other developed economies. This dependence manifests in various forms, from reliance on foreign aid to unfavorable trade deals that hinder economic growth. The statistics paint a clear picture. Africa accounts for a meager share of global trade, and its exports are often limited to raw materials. Meanwhile, manufactured goods, technology, and even basic necessities are heavily imported from G7 nations. This imbalance perpetuates a vicious cycle of dependency, hindering Africa's ability to fully harness its own resources and chart its own economic course. The uncomfortable truth is that Africa's destiny remains intertwined with the decisions made in the capitals of the G7. This dependence, rooted in a complex web of historical injustices and contemporary economic structures, demands our urgent attention. Understanding Africa's present predicament necessitates a journey into its past. The legacy of colonialism casts a long shadow over the continent. European powers, driven by an insatiable appetite for resources and power, carved up Africa during the scramble for Africa in the late 19th century. This period saw the systematic exploitation of Africa's resources and the subjugation of its people. Colonialism's impact was not merely economic, it was also deeply social and psychological. The arbitrary drawing of borders divided ethnic groups, sowing seeds of conflict that continue to plague some parts of the continent today. Colonial education systems often prioritized European languages and cultures, undermining indigenous knowledge systems and creating a sense of cultural alienation. The post-colonial era brought about political independence, but the economic structures of colonialism largely remained intact. Many African nations found themselves locked into trading relationships with their former colonizers, exporting raw materials at low prices, and importing manufactured goods at inflated costs. This unequal exchange further entrenched Africa's position at the bottom of the global economic ladder. The scars of colonialism are evident in the challenges that Africa faces today. Weak institutions, corruption, and conflict are often cited as obstacles to development. However, these challenges cannot be viewed in isolation. They are, in many ways, the enduring consequences of a history marked by exploitation and subjugation. Recognizing the historical context is crucial to comprehending the roots of Africa's current dependence on G7 nations. Foreign aid and trade deals are often touted as instruments for fostering development in Africa. While they hold the potential to contribute to positive change, they also present a double-edged sword. Aid, often driven by noble intentions, can sometimes inadvertently perpetuate dependency. Large-scale aid inflows can weaken local markets, stifle entrepreneurship, and create a culture of reliance on external assistance. Trade deals, too, can be a mixed bag. While access to G7 markets can provide opportunities for African businesses, these deals are often negotiated from a position of unequal power. As a result, African countries may be compelled to accept terms that are not in their best interests, such as reduced tariffs on imported goods that undercut local industries. Furthermore, the focus on exporting raw materials, encouraged by some trade deals, hinders Africa's ability to industrialize and move up the value chain. The continent remains vulnerable to price fluctuations in global commodity markets, perpetuating economic instability. Statistics highlight the stark realities of Africa's trade relationship with G7 nations. The continent's share of global trade remains dismally low, and its exports are heavily concentrated in a few primary commodities. Meanwhile, imports from G7 nations, including manufactured goods, technology, and even food, remain high, contributing to trade deficits and a reliance on external sources for essential goods. The consequences of Africa's dependence on G7 nations are stark and far-reaching. Despite its vast potential, the continent continues to grapple with a myriad of economic challenges. Low economic growth rates, high levels of poverty, and limited industrialization are just a few symptoms of this dependency. The over-reliance on foreign aid can create a vicious cycle. Aid inflows can in some cases lead to currency appreciation, making exports less competitive and further entrenching the dependence on primary commodity exports. Moreover, the specter of corruption looms large in the context of aid, diverting resources away from crucial development priorities. Unfavorable trade deals exacerbate these challenges. The influx of cheap imported goods, often subsidized by G7 governments, can stifle the growth of local industries. This stifles job creation and perpetuates poverty. The lack of diversification in African economies, largely due to the emphasis on exporting raw materials, leaves them vulnerable to external shocks and price fluctuations. The statistics paint a grim picture. Africa's share of global manufacturing remains abysmally low, and the continent struggles to attract foreign direct investment outside of extractive industries. This lack of economic diversification perpetuates the cycle of dependency, hindering Africa's ability to create sustainable and inclusive economic growth. Like, share, and comment. Let's hear your thoughts. EDIGE experience. Explore, engage, elevate.